Hello, good morning. Today I'm joined by my guest James from Genmar. How are you doing, James?
Hi, yeah, very well, thank you. Very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very, very well, thank you. Today we're going to discuss, you guys do IT and IT support particularly well for estate agents, but we're going to get into more of a specific area, which is something that I think agents always struggle with. In fact, everybody struggles with it. It's productivity. So the first thing I asked you this morning after we said hello, I said to you, "Are you guys nice and busy at the moment?" And you said, "Yes, you're busy." And I think there's a difference sometimes between being busy and being productive. And for all the modern tech that we've got at our fingertips, it can either be a distraction or it can be a tool that aids you to achieve something that day and to actually be productive. And very often, as estate agents or managing teams, we forget what busy is and what productive is, and that the two aren't necessarily the same thing. So, James, I understand that the tech being at the forefront of everything that we do, and it can be that distraction sometimes, but it can also be that absolute aid that we need to get our jobs done. Where should we start?
Yeah, you make a really good point. I think, the distractions are the biggest killer to productivity in an office. Like you say, that there's so much more distractions now with the fact that everyone's got all these various different bits of tech. Some of these things are brought in to increase productivity, but when not used properly, can end up making it worse. So an example is things like emails, for instance. We're all getting emails all the time on your computer. They're all popping up all the time, meeting links and things coming through constantly. I think when you're really trying to work on a specific task, when you've given yourself a priority for the day and said, this is what I'm going to be doing, it's so important to try and put those things to one side and really give yourself that time to work on those tasks. Because you've got emails, you've got, social media is always there. You've got phone calls coming through. You've probably got people walking in through the door and asking you questions. Your co-workers asking you questions and things. So there's so much going on. I think something that I myself have been doing for the last year or so, and it's something that I've really tried to do with the rest of my team and things now, is to do this time blocking exercise. There's a technique for it called Pomodoro, which is you set yourself a 25-minute task, and you get yourself a 5-minute break at the end of that. And then you just do that over and over again throughout the day and give yourself 40-minute breaks. But what it means is in that 25 minutes, you just focus solely on that one task that you're working on. But the key thing to be able to do that is to get rid of all distractions. So I think as an IT company, there's two real goals that we're trying to achieve with our customers when we take over their IT. One is to make sure they're safe, make sure their IT and their data and things is safe and secure. And the other thing is to make sure they've got the ability to be productive. So having working computers that aren't, running slowly all the time and aren't crashing all the time, and that they're using softwares and features and things that gives them the ability to, automate and get rid of some of those more repetitive tasks and things as well.
And do you have sort of like obviously that talks about the hardware there being up to date and having enough memory to run properly and smoothly, because you're right, people they hesitate about using a certain piece of software if they know that every time they use that program the computer grinds to a halt and they'll not be able to do anything else. Very often it's multitasking that kind of makes or breaks a good system. So are you able to run a lot of us are running two screens at the moment, so we're running several programs simultaneously. There's an awful lot going on there that needs to be balanced, and keeping that engine running correctly at the right speed, it can dictate whether or not you actually use these programs.
For sure, definitely. And then you got, on top of that, the remote working situation as well, which makes things even more complicated with especially productivity and time management and things. But like you say, has everyone got the right hardware when they move to the working from home? Do they have two screens? That's a massive one, having two screens, because once you move to two, you find it impossible to go back to one again.
You do, and if you ever plugged your laptop into sort of two screens, going back to that small laptop screen afterwards is is an owner. You kind of get spoiled. But as ever, there's a particular skill set in actually using these things correctly. So there's no point having two screens where you're not using them in tandem and you're not using them efficiently. And the best way of being able to set these things up, and I'm sure that you guys can recommend that. A lot of what we think is good management of our people these days, particularly in say multi-branch firms, will be communication, that we want the ability to sort of communicate with the rest of the team all the time. And email used to be the thing that did it. As you've just already highlighted, email is where a lot of spam and general inquiries come into, so it's hard to filter. People are using messaging systems internally. Some people are using WhatsApp, but there are also more dedicated productivity systems like Slack, for argument's sake, that a lot of people use. Are these a help or are they a hindrance?
I think just like any of these systems, it's how they're set up and how people use them. You know, we use Microsoft Teams. We have a lot of customers that use Microsoft Teams. And I think when it's set up correctly, like Slack and like WhatsApp, it can be very effective and it can really help. I think one of the big, problems people have in terms of time management a lot is, especially when you get to a larger business, is meetings, sort of endless meetings that don't really provide a lot of value.
Yeah.
Meetings, endless meetings that can take up your time much more so than if you use the likes of Teams or Slack or something like that effectively, can reduce the amount of the physical face-to-face meetings you have, and that could save a lot of time for people, especially when we're in a sort of hybrid remote working situation where it means that people aren't driving to and from buildings and things to have face-to-face meetings with people. The other big thing about using those tools and using all of these tools is a lot of them have got the ability to set up some level of automation. I think automation really is a key thing for people to get more productive. I think every single repetitive task that you can automate, you really should be, even if it's a case that it takes you 2 minutes to do, but it will take you an hour or 2 hours to automate it. If you're going to be doing that repetitive task 5 times a week for the next 3 years, that hour is going to save you hours and hours and hours over the year. And also, if you automate it, then it gets done right every time. Once you set it up once and it's working, then that's it. So anyone that's using like Microsoft 365, for instance, there's a whole raft of automation processes and things that are built into 365 that a lot of people just don't know about. They've got this system called Microsoft Flow, or Power Automate it's called now, and you can make it so that you can say, I don't know, if an email comes from this person, then do this, start a flow of triggers and things off that then can basically eradicate some repetitive tasks that people are doing. An example of this is like we have account creation processes. So when a new member of staff joins one of the customers that we work with, they tell us this person's starting, and that means we've got to do 15 things. We've got to order a laptop for them, we've got to set up a headset for them, we've got to make a 365 license, whatever it is. And it used to be that it was all quite manual. We'd have a checklist and we go through it and tick those things off, we do them. We spent a lot of time automating that whole process so that when now someone tells us, we can just sort of start a flow, type in the person's name, whatever it does all the things we want it to do, and then it's the same every single time, so it works every single time, and now it's much quicker. And that really, everyone can do that. If you think of a repetitive task that you're doing on a daily, weekly basis, there will be a way of automating it to some extent. The likes of like AI and things now, I've even seen some agents and things using these tools that can automatically write copy for them, on their listings and things, So there's so much that you can do. If you can think about it, you can automate it really.
So where do I start as an agent if I'm looking at sort of getting on top of these things, and I were to sort of get in touch with you? What would you seek to do? How would you work on it?
I think the first step is to make a list of the things that are repetitive and that take up your time. And a really good starting point for that is to do the time blocking exercise that I talked about before, because in doing that, what you're actually doing is making a list of the things that you're doing on a regular basis. So there's a free website you can go to called Pomodoro Tracker, which I use, which basically you can pop in little blocks of time and you can categorize them to say I'm doing HR, accounts, sales, marketing, whatever it is, and put in the tasks that you're working on. That's good because it gives me a priority for the day. I know as soon as we finish this call, I'm going to look at that and I'm going to know the exact thing that I'm going to do next. But also it means that I can look back at the week and say, how much time did I spend on, marketing this week?
And it's got some scientific backing as well, hasn't it? That 25-minute period is pretty much the maximum that we as human beings can absolutely concentrate and engross ourselves in one task without other things dropping off. So you will pick it back up again. It just means you need to have a break sometimes, just a simple, just 5-minute change of scene.
100%, 100%. And then you know when the break ends as well. You don't get stuck on Facebook for an hour afterwards. You got the 5 minutes, it's done, and then you go straight back
I
on.
was gonna say the number one productivity killer's got to be TikTok, right?
Oh yeah.
When you fall down a TikTok rabbit hole, that's it. You're there scrolling for hours, man,
Yeah,
and
that's
that's your day gone. But there is so much of that sort of distraction out there, and it's great. I think social media sort of has enabled us to do things that we previously never able to do. And it's given everybody a very basic platform, but it's also given us a great way to kill productivity in terms of both the stuff that we pump out, creating content, and also the stuff that we consume, creating content, and trying to grab people's attention. So there's that constant battle. So you talked about sort of using things like that tracker online in order to sort of just work out when your breaks are coming, and to also identify which of those things that are repetitive tasks, and then what else do we need to do in order to get on top of our systems?
So, a lot of it can be done yourself if you've got, it doesn't take a lot of technical knowledge. A lot of the Microsoft thing I was explaining before, it's not something that needs programming or scripting or anything. It's literally a case of you can just graphically draw out the flows and things that you want to produce yourself. That's something that you can look at. If you're using 365, it should be part of the subscription you're already paying for. Speak with your CRM providers as well. I know that a lot of the software people use has got a lot of automation built into it, that people don't necessarily utilize. So you could speak to them and get them to build out some bits for you as well. Or speak to an IT company like us. We are more than happy to help, set up these automations. And a lot of the time, we, for instance, will do that as a matter of course, because anything that we can automate, really, it's lazy on our side because it means that then we don't have to do it anymore. Like setting up email accounts and giving access to printers or whatever it is. If we automate that whole process out, it means that we don't have to get the call about it later on and do it manually.
I'm looking at some of the stats that you sent through, and one of them, because I'm easily distracted like that, but one of them that you sent through was a survey from salary.com showed that 31% of employees waste an hour of work time a day, and 6% waste up to 3 hours a day. Um, and and I've met members of teams and staff in the past that make an absolute career out of wasting time. If there's something that can be done in 5 minutes, it will take 5 hours. But it's also it's a whole skill set as to how they pad out their time. I think that estate agents as a whole, we tend to fall into a category of people. We're salespeople. We like to do all the sort of the talking side of things and the selling side of things, which often means that we're not amazing on the kind of admin end of things or keeping on top of where we're meant to be. And so, in order to sort of keep us fully engrossed and organized and on track, it can be a hell of a task. But it makes perfect sense to me that it should start with the IT system itself, and then go further into looking at the efficient use of that IT and how it's controlled and deployed.
That's it.
Um, and just as a recap, we've spoken to you before, so obviously we know this, but you do work with an awful lot of estate agents and deal with their direct IT requirements. Are we unique in a sector? Do we have certain needs that you don't see in other places, or is it generally speaking the same sort of thing?
I think there are some fairly unique problems and issues with the IT setup for estate agencies, but not necessarily specific to the industry. But you've got requirements that are quite heavy, you need working systems a lot of the time. You're not one of these industries that if something goes down, you can just wait around for a day and get it back again. I think you're quite IT reliant in the industry. Because now everyone's making a move to getting more of their data, digitalized, and all the processing things that everyone's got. And it was quite early on. We have a lot of customers in different industries which aren't so digitalized. They haven't gone through their digital transformation process. I think in this sort of estate agency industry that happened quite a while ago. We've got the likes of Repit and all these different various systems that people are using for their CRMs and things. It's all on the internet, it's all online. Everything that everyone does now is all through the computer. So it needs to be working. That's the main thing, is that people just need to have a working computer.
Because that's sort of one of the advantages of having cloud-based computing is, yes, you can log in from your holiday destination in the Bahamas and still get on with the day's work, but you've got to have the equipment and also the connection that is capable of handling that kind of bandwidth that you're going to be using in dealing with that data, because that's got to be called down from that cloud and utilized right there and then on your screen. So it does mean that you can't afford to sort of be using outdated, unserviced computer equipment. You've really got to have something that is ready to handle that, and that your connections as well, when it comes to the internet side of things, your web connection's got to be solid and stable.
That's it, and security is all, it's a boring thing that people don't really want to talk about a lot, but in the industry that estate agents are in, they handle a hell of a lot of personal data and a lot of money. Those are the two things that people that are trying to steal data from people want. So I think I said to you last time that we had a call, is that when the government did a survey last year, or 2020, the security survey, the estate agency industry was the second most affected industry in the UK for cyber breaches in 2020, after the financial industry.
Yeah. I can well believe that. In fact, I've heard of all sorts of horror stories, both from the just simple scams that they tried first with conveyancers in terms of getting people to send money to the wrong accounts. But there have been cases where estate agents have been duped by fake email addresses that are set up to look exactly like their own clients and landlords. And so landlord gets an email from the agent that says, "Mr. Landlord, we've had to do a repair on your house. We need £400 of funds just to cover this for a short while. Please transfer it to the..." And some people will pick up the phone and go, "What's this about £400 you spent on my house?" But there are some people who are too busy and just simply go, "Right, £400, bam, gone." And there's very little you can do to kind of claw that back later on. So it's better to have that security in place. It's better to have systems that can identify emails that are not coming from the same source, that are coming from a suspicious source, and just at least flag it up so you can double check it.
100%. And it's something that we care a lot about, and we see a lot of people doing things wrong, and because it is boring, and that it's sort of complicated, people don't really want to get started with it. We have always said, and we say to this day, that we will for free do an IT security audit on any business's systems. If any estate agency is concerned in any way about their IT security, then get in contact with us, and we have this 52-point security checklist. We just go through, it's not everything. It's not going to be secure you from every single thing in the whole world, but it's going to be the basics, making sure that you've got the basics set up in your security. It might just be, we'll give you the green stamp and say, "You're all good, go on, carry on." Or it might be that we say, "Look, there's some serious problems here that you need to really do some work on."
Fantastic. Well, I'm keen that this doesn't go over 25 minutes, because I know that's exactly how long you can concentrate for. But I would highly recommend that anybody who is looking to get on top of their productivity, to spend their time more wisely, but also make sure that their teams are being deployed on things that are pound productive, and they're actually sort of generating income as opposed to losing ourselves in mindless tasks that are very repetitive and that perhaps don't actually fully flex that skill set that we've got and don't really add value to the customer. Those are the sort of things that could be automated. And anyone looking to get on top of their security, what could hurt in taking a free audit? Definitely recommend getting in touch with James and his team at Genmar. We get lots and lots of good feedback from them. They've got some great reviews, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you, James.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you, David.
Thank you.